We all know the Habs are probably going to pick top 5 in the draft, and we've seen some mock drafts come out recently. But who some people have the Habs taking at number 5 might surprise you. Plus, we'll be talking about a very interesting and angry Martin St. Louis responding to a reporter's question, showing he might be upset with GM Kent Hughes. Finally, a great quote from Eric Engels showing that the culture in Montreal is getting noticed league-wide, so you won't want to miss this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. And a quick reminder before we get into the video to hit subscribe. We are so close to 4,500 subscribers. That's not that far from 5,000, so if you hit that button, if you like the content, there's a lot more where this comes from. Jesse, before we get into that Martin St. Louis thing, I want to just talk a bit about who Montreal would draft at number 5, because of course the draft is coming up not too far from now. The draft lottery is in just over a month. People are excited about the draft, and there have been some mock drafts coming out recently, namely Craig Button's. And this one was a bit interesting to me, and I want to get your opinion. This one has Montreal taking Eduard Chalet at number 5, a guy who's usually around 8, 9, even low as 10 in some of the mock drafts I've seen, while Will Smith slides to Arizona at 6. But Will Smith is a guy that in Tankathon and pretty much every other mock draft, they have Montreal taking at 5. What are your thoughts on this Craig Button list, and do you have a particular player that you think Montreal should go for at that 5 spot?
You know what? I like Craig Button, most of the time, and he's there to kind of support the Montreal Canadiens when sometimes some other NHL insiders don't. And I have seen Eduard Chalet a little bit higher up on some lists, but yeah, like you said, Josh, it's more of the outlier. On most drafts, kind of he's the consensus 8, 9 sort of pick. So interesting to see. But, as this year continues, I've been kind of juggling it back and forth. Like, do we want to go for a center, or do we want to pick like a true winger type scoring winger at this type of draft? And the more I think about it, though, is even though that Kirby Dach has been playing so well, I think that we do want to draft a true center. If we do have that 5th pick, I think Will Smith would be a great option for that, just as a center, because it allows us to have Kirby Dach playing on the wing, either on that first or that second line. We know he's proven that he's a good centerman this year. Still a little bit lacking in that face-off dot. Maybe it gives him a little bit of time to still kind of work on that, refine on that. Maybe he's still the team's, second line center while, possibly Will Smith takes on that 3rd role and then kind of works his way up to the 2nd. And that by that point, you can then shift Kirby to the wing. But I mean, these are great problems to have. But yeah, it seems like Will Smith, would be a really good fit with us.
I think so too. I think if he's available at number 5, which it seems like he should be. I mean, if you look here, the consensus top 4 is quite often Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, Matvei Michkov, and Leo Carlsson in some order. Some people have Michkov maybe a bit lower because of, the whole playing in the KHL situation. Some people are high on Carlsson, some people are lower. But one thing that I always like to say, whether it's hockey or any other sport, teams draft for fit. Like, how often have you seen a team draft for fit and it not work out? Or versus a team just drafting the best player available and it not working out? Because to me, if a player is the best available, you will do what you can to make them fit if they develop. Like, for example, this Will Smith situation. I think it's a lot easier to convert a center to a winger, whether it's Kirby Dach or Will Smith or whoever, than it is to convert a winger to a center if you end up having a center hole. So I think you're right. I think Chalet provides some potential. I think he could be a very good player, though I think he'll need to maybe up his defensive game, maybe a little bit of his skating abilities, but he's a smart guy who has a lot of skill. But I think Will Smith's the guy, but Jesse, I'm still a Michkov guy. If Michkov slides to 5, it doesn't seem like these mock drafts have him going out of 5, but a lot of GMs are tight-lipped. Do you think you'd still take him?
I think so too, just for that raw potential, just our timeline of when we're really going to be peaking. It seems like it's going to come together at a really amazing time. Besides Bedard, I don't even think it's a question that he is the 2nd most dynamic player. And, he might surprise some people in the years to come as well. So, and I definitely agree with your point of, picking the best player available, which, I think we did this year too with Juraj Slafkovsky. He still needs a lot of runway and everything else like that. But I think that's our philosophy. We made a big mistake in the past with trying to go for fit and Kotkaniemi with that, infamous 3rd overall pick. And, we definitely missed out in a diamond and not even a diamond in the rough, just a diamond in Brady Tkachuk. So yeah. I think that just speaks to our point. I think, Habs management's definitely going to remember that. Us as fans, we remember that. Let's just pick the best player available.
Good call. And we're going to stay on a note a bit about Habs prospects because, Jesse, this was interesting today. Coach Marty got a bit angry at a question about Sean Farrell, and I got the Twitter link, and I'll put that into the description for you guys if you want to go watch it. Warning, it is in French. There are no subtitles, but we'll paraphrase it for you. He was asked about Sean Farrell, and then a reporter asked him basically, hey, do you think Farrell's comfortable? Do you think he's ready to play in the NHL? And you can see Marty doesn't look happy in this thumbnail, and he doesn't come across as happy in the video. He basically says, that's a question for Kent Hughes. And then the reporter says, why is that a question for Kent Hughes? Like, don't you make the lineups? He said, ask Kent. And he looked angry. Now, to be fair, the reporter that asked him a question, they're currently kind of in a feud. This reporter likes to stir things up with Marty and the Habs. But at the same time, Jesse, what did you interpret his response as? Saying just, ask Kent about Sean Farrell. Because there's a lot of speculation going around that Marty might not be happy with his GM.
Well, Marty's a nice guy, but he's an intense guy. And to be honest, I don't even know if this is all just about, him not practicing first. I definitely get that. I think Marty loves practice, definitely loves establishing those concepts. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of merit to that. I definitely understand that. But at the same time, this is a development year. And he's going to, just the more NHL action that we can get him, that we can really just spoon feed him at this point is for the best. We're not battling for a playoff spot, anything. So I don't really feel that Marty's so much upset about the practice situation as maybe this being something a little bit bigger. And, I might be wrong off of this, but there seemed to be a lot to that, of just that intensity. And it kind of makes you ask the question is, how much of a role does Habs management and particularly Kent Hughes have in our roster selection? And even our draft selection for that question, because that really calls back to Juraj Slafkovsky and, the choice to have him play essentially the whole year until he got injured. And one thing we haven't really talked about on the show as much is that there was a lot of optics and there was a lot of different, schools of thought going into keeping him up here for that. Because when you're the number one pick, it says you stay in the NHL no matter what. And of course, with Shane Wright as well being in the NHL at the same time, even he didn't go second, he didn't go third, he went fourth. Those two players are tied, right? So you didn't, there was kind of a reluctancy, I feel, from Habs to kind of sending Juraj Slafkovsky down with Shane Wright still playing in the NHL, even if he wasn't really playing that great in that first half of the season. So anyway, it just makes you think of, that Kent Hughes probably has a lot of decision-making on who is playing on this roster. And, Martin St. Louis might have his own opinions on how to develop these players, but essentially he's taking cues from higher up on the food chain.
Taking cues from Hughes. That's, it's very interesting because, we saw last year in the Jordan Harris situation, very similar. He gets signed out of college, can come play for Montreal, but they made him practice multiple times, get used to the systems before we saw him hit the ice. Now, again, I know a lot of Sean's friends and family were probably there for that Philadelphia game, or at least could go to the game, because I believe he's from somewhere near there. So hopefully that's it. And Kent Hughes was like, listen, give the kid a hometown shot. I mean, we saw it went back earlier in the year, but maybe, like you said, Marty has to take some cues from upper management like Jeff Gordon, Kent Hughes saying, hey, we want this guy to play. Maybe Marty disagrees with that. But all the same, I don't think this is a major issue, and it just speaks to how little drama there's been with Montreal this year that this is turning into kind of a story that people are talking about. I think we want to make it clear. I don't think there's any big thing here. However, it is very interesting to observe how Coach Marty reacted, so let us know your thoughts down below after you go watch that Twitter video of what you thought he meant by his comments, and yeah, because we'd love to hear your guys' opinions. Final thing today, Jesse, just a quick one to top it off. The league is taking notice of Habs development. This came yesterday, maybe even 2 days ago on the Jeff Merrick show, a user on Reddit who posts quite a lot on the Habs subreddit. I mean, if you're going there, you'll probably see this guy, girl around, Go Habs, Go 31, but they tweeted a quote. It was a TV episode of the Jeff Merrick show, and they tweeted a quote from Eric Engels, of course, Habs insider. Start speaking to some players around the league. I guarantee you there are a lot of them who are paying attention to what's happening with Marty St. Louis and the development staff of the Montreal Canadiens. And it was said in a good context. Jesse, not only are we noticing that the players love playing for Coach Marty, they're passionate night in, night out in a season where they're bottom 5 in the standings, they're fighting, staying with some of the better teams in the league. But it seems like the rest of the league, some players around are like, wow, I kind of want a situation like that one in Montreal. What do you think about it?
It is noticeable because they're really building their brand of hockey. And what it really makes me think of, Josh, is a lot of this talk, a lot of this speculation is it also reminds you of Pierre-Luc Dubois, who very much wants to come to Montreal. And I think a big reason of that is for Martin St. Louis and for just the general culture that we're building with this team. We know that Martin St. Louis, it's not talked about as much, but he was a coaching consultant with Columbus when Pierre-Luc Dubois was there. They have a rapport together. Obviously Martin St. Louis was very fundamental in helping him establish his game as a young player. And you definitely think that Pierre-Luc Dubois would like to be part of the system. It seems like just a great place to be around. I think NHL players, like, there was kind of an era where the coach would kind of be that domineering figure, that Mike Babcock, almost bullying the players a little bit. But it's really changed, right? Now you need really a player's coach and somebody who the players really respect. And I think, who better than Martin St. Louis? He has the respect around the league. He's a positive, intense guy, but, a kind of coach that players really want to play for. So happy to see us developing just in the right way, building that right brand of hockey over the last about, I'd say 10 to 15 games now. I've been really seeing it. It's amazing to see.
It really is. He's both a player's coach, but also seemingly a good X and O's guy with a brilliant mind for the game of hockey. And he's the perfect guy to carry through the rebuild. And I'd love to see him have success with the Habs in the playoffs. I know he said that, whether that involves Pierre-Luc Dubois, whether that involves some other players saying, I'm going to be part of this thing in Montreal. That's, we'll have to wait to see. But things are surely looking up. And I'm glad to see that the rest of the league is taking notice. But that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us hit 5,000 subscribers. Oh man, we can't wait. Hopefully we hit that before the draft. And we appreciate all the support. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.